Sometimes the condemned was lowered into a pit and covered entirely. Other times, left with a small cavity, a cruel allowance for a slow death. It appeared sporadically across civilizations. In ancient Rome, Vestal virgins who broke their vows were entombed beneath the city. In feudal Japan, certain criminals were sealed underground. Even in parts of early modern Europe, burial alive was whispered as a fate worse than hanging. Provisions were sometimes left, but they were no mercy, only an extension of the sentence, ensuring death came from thirst, hunger, or madness, rather than the immediate crush of soil. To become invisible by design, burial alive stripped the condemned of their social presence before life itself ended, turning the earth into an unblinking executioner. From suffocating soil, we step into the blood-soaked plazas of devotion. Human sacrifice, ritual killings. In certain cultures, death was not merely punishment, it was an offering. When the gods were believed to hunger for human life, the boundary between execution and worship dissolved entirely. The methods varied. In the great temples of the Aztec Empire, captives were led up steep stone steps, their chests cut open by obsidian blades, still beating hearts lifted skyward in smoky devotion. In parts of ancient Asia, ritual decapitations were performed before sacred shrines. Carthaginian lore, still debated by historians, whispers of children offered in fire to appease deities. These acts were rarely private. They were spectacles woven into religious festivals or political demonstrations. Sacrifice reinforced cosmic order, demonstrated royal power, and reminded the living of the fragility of their own place in the hierarchy. When gods are thought to demand a body, society itself becomes an altar. Here, devotion, fear, and political theater converge, and death wears the mask of piety. From the altars of sacrifice, we move into the courtroom of the supernatural, where verdicts were not penned by judges, but by the hand of God Himself. Trial by ordeal. In the dim halls of early medieval justice, the accused stood not before a jury, but before fire, water, or steel. Belief held that the divine would not let the innocent perish unjustly, and so the body became both witness and evidence. One might be ordered to plunge a hand into boiling water, retrieving an object from its scalding depths. Another might walk barefoot over red-hot plowshares or carry a heated iron bar for several paces. In the ordeal of water, the accused was bound and cast into a river. Sinking was seen as innocence, for the water had accepted them. Floating meant guilt, the water rejecting a tainted soul. Priests blessed the instruments, prayers were chanted, and the crowd watched with a mixture of awe and dread. Days later, wounds were inspected. Swift, clean healing was divine acquittal. Infection or decay was a sentence of death. Faith and fear braided together here. The trial was a theater of pain, its verdict written not in ink, but in smoke, steam, and the scars left behind. But not all punishment sought answers from the gods. Some did not pretend to test your innocence. They simply took your life, swiftly and without theater, or at least without the theater meant for the crowd. The garrote was one such instrument, cold, efficient, final garrote. It was a chair, a post, and a collar, metal, unyielding, sometimes threaded with a cruel spike. The condemned would be seated, the collar fastened around the neck, and with a single turn of the executioner's handle, it tightened until breath and life were gone. In certain designs, the spike at the back crushed the vertebrae or pierced the neck as the collar closed. This method found use across centuries, from ancient Rome to medieval Spain and into the colonial Americas. In Spain, it became the official mode of execution for centuries, seen as cleaner than the axe or the rope, though no less terrifying for those who sat in its embrace. It was not a punishment designed to make a spectacle. There was no long screaming agony for the crowd to feed on. Instead, it was the cold intimacy of death delivered by human hands just inches from the condemned's ear. They called it mercy. The condemned often called it something else. From the cold, constricting silence of the garrote, death can also come in a rush of unbearable heat, an agonizing baptism not of mercy, but of pain. Scalding. Across centuries and cultures, the simple act of pouring boiling liquids on a person became a tool of punishment and terror. Scalding was used to burn flesh, shatter nerves, and mark bodies with wounds that would never fully heal. In medieval Europe, scalding was both punishment and public spectacle. Whether dousing a suspected witch in boiling water or punishing thieves, exact revenge. The pain was immediate and searing, the skin blistering and peeling as victims writhed and screamed. Scalding was not just about injury, it was about humiliation and fear, a violent message broadcast in steam and flesh. From the burning rush of boiling liquid to the crushing weight of stone, some punishments find their cruelty in slow suffocation rather than searing pain. Peine, peine forte et dure. In medieval England, the law faced a peculiar dilemma. When accused criminals refused to plead guilty or not guilty, the courts could not proceed to trial. The answer was brutal and unequivocal: peine, or peine forte et dure. The condemned was laid flat, often on their back, and heavy stones were piled upon their chest, increasing weight slowly and relentlessly. With each added stone, the ribs creaked and groaned, the lungs struggled to expand, and breathing became a desperate fight. The punishment was designed to force a plea, but many chose silence even at the cost of agonizing death. The crushing pressure would slowly collapse the chest, suffocating the victim under the weight of both stone and law. This was not just a punishment, it was a calculated torture where the body became the judge, jury, and executioner all at once. From the relentless weight of stones crushing the chest, punishment could turn sharp and sudden, a searing grip designed to tear flesh from bone, a tool of terror known as the crocodile shears. Crocodile shears. Imagine iron tongs, their jaws like the jaws of a beast, heated red hot until they glow with burning fury. These were the crocodile shears, instruments of agonizing torture designed to rip away not just flesh, but a person's very identity. Used in parts of medieval Europe, these brutal tools were applied to fingers, toes, and even the most sensitive and private parts of the body. The heated iron clamped down, crushing, burning, and tearing, leaving wounds that shattered both flesh and spirit. The punishment was both physical and symbolic. To lose a finger or worse was to lose agency and power, a permanent reminder of guilt and submission. It was an act meant to break more than bones. It was meant to break wills. The crocodile shears were not reserved for the faint-hearted or the innocent. They were the cruel echo of a world where pain was currency and terror was law. From fiery iron gripping flesh to a cold, invasive device designed to tear from within, the horrors of punishment often found new shapes in the shadows of cruelty. The pear of anguish, a small, unassuming metal device with a sinister purpose, the pear of anguish was inserted into a victim's mouth, rectum, or vagina, places where the body is most vulnerable. Once inside, the pear-shaped device was slowly expanded by turning a screw or lever, forcing delicate tissues to stretch, tear, and rupture. Though the exact historical use and prevalence are debated, many accounts from medieval Europe describe the device as a tool of interrogation and punishment, designed to inflict unimaginable pain while prolonging suffering. The victim's cries would echo behind closed doors, a private agony that left lasting physical and psychological scars. The pear of anguish was not just about pain, it was about control, domination, and the calculated breakdown of human dignity. In the darkest corners of history, such devices remind us how far cruelty can reach, hidden beneath the cold metal of a deceptively simple instrument. From the slow, wrenching expansion inside, we move to a punishment that turns the body itself into a tool of torment, a cruel seat designed not for rest, but for ripping flesh and bone. Judas' cradle. Picture a sharp, pyramid-shaped seat, narrow and unforgiving. The condemned was hoisted above it and then slowly lowered, their weight pressing down on a single merciless point. The body's own weight became the instrument of torture, tearing skin, muscle, and sinew with agonizing precision. This device was used in medieval Europe, a grim invention meant to prolong suffering and break the spirit as much as the flesh. Victims might be left on the cradle for hours or days, the slow descent into pain a terrifying ordeal. Like many medieval tortures, the Judas cradle blurred the line between punishment and spectacle, the cruel geometry of pain made visible in a stark wooden frame. It was a calculated, merciless reminder that in some courts, the body was a canvas for punishment and agony the ink. If the body can be torn by iron and wood, it can also become a prison for terror, where the tiniest of creatures become instruments of unbearable pain. Rat torture. In a punishment that twisted fear into flesh, victims were restrained with cages filled with hungry rats strapped directly onto their bodies. The torment was not just in the bite, but in the method. By heating the cage, the rats were driven frantic, desperate to escape the unbearable heat. With nowhere to go, they burrowed into the softest, warmest place, human flesh. Slowly, terrifyingly, the rats gnawed through skin, muscle, and bone. The victim's agony was as much psychological as physical, a livid nightmare where survival meant enduring the relentless assault of creatures driven wild by fire. This form of torture, recorded in various historical contexts, reveals the depths of cruelty devised when fear and pain become tools of control. It is a grim testament to how humanity can twist even the smallest animals into weapons of suffering. Thank you for joining this journey through ancient and medieval history's darkest punishments. If you found this as gripping as we did, don't forget to subscribe and come back to Creek History for more intriguing stories from the past. Stories that shape our understanding of humanity's complex, often brutal, but endlessly fascinating legacy. Stay curious, stay thoughtful, and until next time, keep exploring the tales from Creek.